Are we live?
We are live. Hey there, everyone. Thank you for joining today. We're really excited to dive in with our friends at Middleware on the ROI of fixing one metric. This is in our Dora series. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds, but we're going to give a little more time for some people to join. In the meantime, feel free to give us a shout out. Let us know where you're calling in from, and I think our panelists will do the same. You can do that in the little chat.
I'm calling in from Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah. I'm calling in from Delhi, India.
Can get started in about 30 seconds, but just one more time, if you'd like, feel free in the chat to call out where you're calling from. All right, got some more people joining, so with that, we can go ahead and get started. I will pass it off to Copia's Director of Product Marketing, Gerry Abbey.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Thank you to our friends at Middleware for being here. And thank you, most of all, to the audience for joining us. We've got a great conversation today. We're covering the ROI of fixing one metric. Should be an engaging and fun conversation. We had a lot of great practice sessions leading into it. To start off, I'm going to do a quick intro and then hand it off to Drew. Again, Gerry Abbey, Director of Product Marketing here at Copia. Before Copia, I worked at Rockwell Automation, Plex Systems, and another slew of software companies. Up in the upper right here, you can see two reports. I led the State of Smart Manufacturing report for 3 years at Rockwell and Plex, and established the State of Industrial DevOps report here at Copia Automation. I'm highlighting those because I love data. I'm very excited for this conversation today. Before even these reports, I worked on another report that was in HR consulting. So very grounded in data. Again, I'm in Rhode Island. I've lived in a few places, Taiwan and Spain, and recently graduated from BU. So still thinking in that school mode of what are good questions we should be asking to improve our operations? How can we get better? And with that, passing it over to you, Drew.
Well, thanks, Jerry. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me. Hi, folks. My name is Dhruv. I run a company called Middleware, and with me, of course, there's Jerry, and this podcast, this webinar wouldn't have been possible without the help from our friends at Copia as well as my colleague Shivam. So Middleware is a product which helps companies align their engineering efforts with the business, and detect any inefficiencies in their processes, whether that's bottleneck of someone stuck on someone else, whether that's a bottleneck on your environment. Whatever it is, we help you figure out how you can make your delivery smoother, how you can achieve your transformation goals faster. And yeah, so I'm based out of part India, part US, and that's where my two legs are. Before doing this, I was a senior engineering manager at a company called Maersk. I was based out of Copenhagen in Denmark, and before that, I was in India working with a couple of startups. And my ties with development go way back to the OG of organizations like OWASP and Mozilla, which have been helping me in putting down the foundation for our customers as well. So I'm really excited to be here and share stories of how I've seen multiple enterprises in my personal experiences and my customer experiences of just focusing on one metric and driving all the good changes home. So yeah, thanks, Gerry.
Thank you, Drew. And with that, let's dig in. So format today for our audience here, we have a bunch of questions that Drew and I are going to dig into. It's going to be very much like a fireside chat. So with that, why focusing on just one metric is a great way to drive success in 2025. So I'm going to start off with a little context, and then I'm going to kick it over to Drew. I mentioned those reports earlier. Copia Automation is an industrial DevOps platform focused on efficiency and software development. It's coming out of DevOps, which started in 2009, which was focused on uniting development and operations, also security, and having everybody working in the same place on the same thing at the same time. So making development that much faster because you're not working in a silo and throwing something over a wall. And in the operational technology area, I've seen that time and again through my time at Plex Systems, through Rockwell Automation, all of these great technologies from all over the place. They're being introduced. They seem phenomenal. And then you might get an immediate change in improvement, but then it kind of falls flat. And you wonder, why isn't this doing anything? And that's one of the things that we're going to be digging into here. Why does a technology fall flat? And baseline, because you need technology, people, and process working together, and you need to be moving in the same direction. Drew, when we were digging into this yesterday, you had a lot of unique personal experiences, which led, I think, to the founding of Middleware. So I'm going to flip this question over to you because I'd love to hear your unique perspective on it.
Yeah, sure. So I think even before answering this question, I had a couple of years back, I read a book called Power of One, right?
Yeah, great book.
It talks about, focusing on sorry, not Power of One, the one thing, right? So it talks about focusing on just the one thing that really matters to you. And it talks about that people are very much aware of the Pareto principle, that if you do 20% things, it carries off the 80% weight. And the author talks about, going extreme Pareto, that what's the one thing that you will do that's most important, that'll have the most impact right now. And when you talk about, this great topic of just focusing on one metric, I think that's the book that kept on, playing in the background of my head. In my personal experience itself, with engineering teams out there, and what's special about the engineering teams is that it's not as solved as the sales teams or the operations teams or the marketing teams, that the goal is not defined. It's not having revenue, it's not having MQLs, it's just not defined at all. And because of the varied goals, there's so much chaos around it. So, it's very important for the leaders to not debate which metric is right or wrong, but instead find out what's important to their business. So what's the most important thing for their business? Is it rolling out new features so your throughput becomes important? Is it tackling your customer your customer support requests? Is that cost going up? You don't have the staff and your product is having a lot of issues. Is it about the quality of the product? Is it about not able to utilize all the engineering staff that you have, right? It's very important to focus on what your business wants today. Your business cannot want everything at the same time, right? So take that number and then backtrack from that. So in my personal experience, I was working at a shipping company, very old company, and they were trying to revamp themselves into a modern tech offering. And our original system was on mainframe systems, right? And now we were trying to recreate a modern tech whole platform which will mimic it, works faster, is better, like you can scale it insanely well, and that should bring the business a lot of dollars. And that's fair, right? Digital transformation is the name of the game. But the problem we had was not the number of engineers, because we had hired a bunch, was not in the roadmap, because we had that clearly defined. But the problem was that despite every team burning the midnight oil, they were not able to see even halfway through the roadmap because there were so many errors, right? So when I joined the team, fortunately, I saw this opportunity that, hey, if we are digging our own grave every time we are shipping something new, we need to stop that, right? And I went ahead, made that focus of removing all the incidents that are arising from the entire stack of 300 engineers working on that new project, right? The whatever project we were on, and then kept on posting that every week, right? Kept on asking people that, okay, what are your plans to reduce your incident? What are your plans to reduce your incidents? And that's how we started brainstorming about the process changes. Even if we had great ideas, we couldn't impose it on people earlier. But using that metric, we could really drive the change. That, okay, how do you think you can resolve it? How do you think you can resolve it? And then people become on your side because they understand that we can't achieve our goals, we can't achieve our quarterly goals, or we can't achieve our roadmap goals if this quality issue is not resolved. And that really helped in revamping the way teams were functioning. And you know what? Because they had to resolve the quality issues, they added, let's say, better quality practice, like they added tests in there. So any new change could be tested faster. And that ended up increasing the speed later on. So just focusing on one metric actually made the other metrics improve. And that's why I think from a Dora metric standpoint, people talk about it like it's a balance of it, and all these metrics go hand in hand. So and I said it in another webinar with Nathan Harvey from Dora team as well, the like in a large period of time, the only choice is between, do you want a better software faster or a worse software slower? So yeah, with that, I mean, I'll give the I'll give the podium back to you. But yeah, so that has been my experience of choosing one metric, and rightly said that that's the only way to approach 2025.
Thank you, Drew. And there's so much to unpack there. And I love your personal story of experiencing this one metric focus. And so many things resonated with me here. And I know we're going to talk about some of it later, so I won't dig too deep. But one of the things that didn't come out when we were practicing, but I just heard you saying, even if you weren't directly saying it, is that focusing on one metric drives autonomy for the workforce, and they're able to figure out what is going to achieve that one metric. And
Correct.
Yeah. I don't think I told you, but I'm working on a workforce focused report right now that we're going to launch in the beginning of the year, the State of Industrial DevOps Workforce. And it's focused on what do workers want now. And there's so many issues to unpack within the workforce, the skills gap, labor shortage, retiring boom, knowledge transfer, like endless. But this one metric focus provides autonomy, which the workforce definitely wants, to feel like they have a meaningful job, that what they're doing has an impact, and that they are the captain of their domain by taking some ownership to drive that improvement. And I read so much social science, just personally love it. And the power of a team versus the power of an individual is strikingly different. I've just reread Scrum for like the third time in the last 2 years. And
Yeah.
I've been thinking so much about the exponential power of a team versus an individual.
Yeah.
And the production curve, which is highlighted in Scrum, ties into what you were saying about people burning the midnight oil. In that book, they have a chart that shows the production curve. And while you can work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, it's not productive according to the research that is out there. You hit a peak, and that peak is around 35 hours in a week, and then your production declines. And it's so important for that to be reiterated and known so that people can work better. Just like your banner says, be productive, not busy. If you can work less hours and be way more productive than you are in double hours, why shouldn't everybody be doing it? All right.
Yeah.
So not to go too far afield, I'm going to reshare the screen and move into our next piece of the topic, which is all connected here.
Definitely.
So I always talk about this goal. Drew, have you read this book?
Oh, that's my favorite book. That's my by far my favorite book.
So good. So
Yeah.
so good. For our audience, if you haven't read this book, it is a fictionalized account of a plant manager taking over an operation that is failing and likely to go out of business. And it tells of his journey, speaking with a mentor and thinking about what is the goal of the business. And it gets into finding the one thing to be focused on, not the KPIs, the OKRs, the millions and millions of metrics that get built up and gamified so that people can actually game the system, meet the metrics, and still have a failing operation. This book, The Goal, published, I think, in the mid-'80s, established the theory of constraints. And Drew, you had mentioned bottlenecks. So identifying the bottleneck and making sure the uptime of that bottleneck is 100%, and that everything is subordinated to that to flow through it and eliminate waste, maximize quality, and keep that focus so that everybody knows and can innovate around it, how to speed it up and that throughput. And I'm going to move to our next question here.
In fact, this book is one of the, like, in our initial docs, which me and my co-founder exchanged while we were building the product, the 3 principles of throughput, operating expense, and inventory. Those were the principles that we used to build something for the engineering side of the world, right? Your work is ready, but not been reviewed, has been reviewed but not sent to the customer, or you are taking too many engineers to deliver the same piece of thing. Like, if you can see through the operating expenses, the number of engineers, or the time spent by them, the throughput is how much are we able to deliver to the customer. And inventory is stuff that's done by a, let's say, a developer, but a QA is missing the deadline, or the reviews are missing. So yeah, fantastic book. Thanks for bringing it up, Gerry. Thanks for sharing it.
And thanks for tying in those examples. It's always better to have, like, where does it appear in real life? What is the experience? And moving into our next question here, how do you determine which metric has the greatest potential to drive overall improvement for software delivery? Where do you start?
Wow, this is a very good question. I mean, one, I would love to answer that, but in the audience, if you have some ideas, just try to send those answers in. I think we'll also learn something, or it'll be a debate worthy thing. So Gerry, I think, as we were talking about choosing the one metric, I would go way back, and I'm I follow a school of flow. I like how the flow engineering and the concepts of flow work. That naturally everything is flowing like top down, and now that at the top is your business goal. Now you must understand what are you really doing from your software team, right? What part of your business and what impact is your team supposed to have, or like from the delivery standpoint? Are you in a keeping the lights on kind of team? So for you have more to protect than to create. right? And that's how your goals become, because if you're just keeping the lights on, then you have to ensure that what's the least cost in which I can keep the quality up. So quality becomes a big target. But if you are in a striving team, you're moving fast and you have a lot of goals to fulfill upon, I think that's where you will say that, okay, I need to put up my delivery speed. Where are we today? Where are we getting stuck? Are we at our full capacity? Do we need more people? And that's how the mental model would go. And so for any business, I think it's very contextual. It's very important to understand your business, your team's culture, but at the end it comes down to what's the goal, what do I fix in my software delivery outcome that I achieve the goal, and then leverage data. And I'll just plug myself in, because middleware helps you pull up that data using just your Jira, GitHub, and other tools to understand where the team is stuck, so that you can act upon that particular stage of development. So yeah, what about you, Gerry? What do you think?
I love that you brought up flow engineering.
Yeah.
So with the State of Industrial DevOps report, we are working towards next year's edition, and I'm working with a bunch of different people outside of Copia to really challenge the assumptions and make it broader and better this year. And flow engineering's one of those pieces that I want to tap into to help create a fuller picture of how we're looking at industrial DevOps. And I am extremely excited about unpacking it and digging into it,
Yeah.
because I've read Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book Flow, and have dug into that deeply in the last couple of years, thinking about how do we tap into flow regardless of who we are. If we are a software engineer, if we are a plant manager, if we are in our own organizations trying to
Yeah.
make marketing run more efficiently, make your company run more efficiently, being able to tap into flow and understand how you get that focus. And flow very much is that focus.
Yeah.
So tied into this one metric to make our direction common and bring people together. And I love that you brought up that lights on approach versus that creative approach. When people are in that lights on, it's more so reactive and closes off our ability to move faster, to hit that flow state, and to truly be open to collaboration, working with other teams, sharing with other teams. But if you have that one goal, everyone's going towards it, you have that commonality driving team unity and being more in that flow state and that creative state, which is going to make your organization that much more productive. And just looking at the question again, how do you ensure it doesn't negatively affect other parts of the system? That's where that collaborative piece comes in, and maybe Scrum methodology of having sprints and talking about the blockers, talking about the things that are not working. And in Scrum, Jeff Sutherland talks about asking questions of what would make you feel better, like getting into those kind of squishy questions. What would make you feel better about the business or better about the team? And that unearths these predictive comments around, are we moving in the right direction? If people are not feeling comfortable, you're giving them space to voice their concerns and unearth what could later down the line be a challenge. And I think beyond just choosing that one metric, it's around the process that you build to unify the team around a flow approach and a unified approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also ties back to the point that you were making from a cultural standpoint, that you do have to create that culture of challenging. You do have to create a culture of empowering every person to understand the context, empowering every person to be a part of the team. Because yes, you do need only one metric to drive a change. But the way they tell us to keep our window shades open while the flight is landing down or flying up, it always helps in enabling the team with the culture, with the cultural aspect, so that even if our direction is going in a linear way, even if something's going off, even if we are missing something, keeping the window shades open by our colleagues who can tell us that if something is going wrong, we can course correct. I think that's going to be very important. So breeding up that culture of like, are we on the right track? Yes. If not, then what are the checks? What are the checks that we might not rupture something else? Yeah, I think that'll help. But while we are moving on to the next question, with everyone in the audience, what's the one metric that you are choosing for your team? Do tell us, in the comments. Yeah, let's move on to the next one, Gerry.
Cool. And just keeping an eye on the comments too. So please,
Yeah.
questions, comments, throw them in there.
Yeah.
How do you measure the net effect of your efforts? Do you use frameworks? Do you use tools? Are there other approaches? Just from your personal experiences, Dhruv, can you give any examples, what you've used to measure?
That's a very good question, Gerry. That's a very good question. In fact, I mean, the audience can tell us if I'm going for every time I'm answering something, I'm going the longer route. But if you could just pull up the question again.
Yep.
I think these questions are very interesting because every time you're trying to measure something for engineering teams, it's hazy, right? And it's hazy just like my camera because uh, engineering output is often what's measured because that's all you can measure, right? How many lines of code and all those backlashy things. Now, people have understood that measuring that output doesn't do any help because engineering output is not related to business outcome, right?
Yeah.
And hence, people started to realize that all we have is the power of iteration. Can we convert ideas faster to product or not, right? That's the only thing we own in engineering, and that's where we work towards it. So if your engineering team is like a well-oiled machine which can convert couple of ideas on the roadmap quickly to a product in the most efficient manner in a predictable timeline, then you're successful, right? So that's the foundation of any engineering team. Now, when you're looking at measuring the net effect of your efforts, so what are your efforts about? So efforts are about, again, converting those ideas into products. So you start with the flow. Are my ideas magically flowing into products? How does the flow look like, right? How much of my planned work is getting executed by my team? Now, once you look at this flow and this flow is, let's say, slightly disturbed, then I think the way to check around is to see which stage is bottlenecked, like our favorite book tells us about, right? The goal. So you measure very simply, right? If input is less than output, that means you're just clocking more, but that never happens. So if your output is less than your input, that means that stage is bottlenecked. And that's where I apply the flow framework first. And then when you are very sure that okay, everything is fine, my product managers are giving us the right tickets, my engineering manager is planning up to capacity, the only fault is in my delivery, then you go apply your Dora metrics. Don't start with it. Then you go apply them. And then you measure, okay, is my engineering operation just for delivery doing fine or not? And then you see the net effect. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're applying these frameworks, that you have to focus on more metrics. That just means that once you put these frameworks in place, and then keep everything constant and you work towards one metric, rest of them will likely be moving towards positivity. So what do you think, Gerry, in your experience?
Totally. I love how you were unpacking it there. talking about the ideas flowing into the products, one of the things that we've been working on here just as an organization at Copia is top down and bottom up. So we have maybe not one metric, but like as close as we can get right now that the organization is moving towards. And as we create the ideas around it, what we're moving towards, we very much look at the top down. So we have our chosen metric. How does that look in our funnel of activities and actions that we're taking towards it? And then we test that hypothesis from the bottom up also to make sure that everything really is aligned and getting teams to talk to one another, like you said, keeping the window shades open so that as we go through executing, taking action, thinking, planning, we're seeing those gaps as quickly as we possibly can. And I have one great customer example when going and trying to pick that one metric. How do we get started? And one of our customers was talking about how they have a mix of different employees. So some that are young, very accustomed to a DevOps approach, others that are older and have been in the operational technology space for a long time, and definitely approach the industrial DevOps idea differently, industrial coding differently. And they just sit down as a team and talk about what can we do as a team? If everybody can buy into producing good code, then we can work from there and just, like you said from your personal experience earlier, Drew, work out what's going to get us to that point. So good code, we're just going to track our code, and that way we know that changes are happening, when they're happening, how they're happening. And then you can branch out slowly but surely as a team that's unified because you've built that process to get that one direction right.
I agree. I agree. Beautiful.
All right, now that we've dug in a little on that process, some metrics, frameworks, I'm going to reshare my screen for this next question. Once you decide on that one metric, what's next? And I know we touched on this a little, so we'll try and dig around and add some other dimensions to it.
Yeah. But this time, why don't you start, Gerry? What do
Cool.
you think about it?
So you've done the hard part when you get to this point, figured out the metric that's meaningful for the organization. What's next? I think a lot of the things that we just talked through. So keeping the teams unified and working in that direction together. And things evolve. So that's one of the pieces that in all these discussions and the research I see out there, I don't see enough about. So you can set something, but it's not to be forgotten. You need to constantly test your hypothesis as the market evolves. If you are a scaling organization, things are going to change. Your customers are going to change.
Yeah.
Their expectations are going to change. All of these things are moving. So you might set this one metric. So what's next is testing it throughout, making sure that your teams are moving in the right direction first, that you have the process there to achieve that metric. And once you're moving in lockstep towards that metric, testing and retesting that it is the right metric, that you're not gaming the system in some way.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to do that. Yeah. How about you, Drew? What do you think there?
I mean, I love that you have put the Goodhart's law in the towards the end of the answer. I think if you have set up the metric, the easiest path, the easiest thing is to check your plan. Is that plan of what you are planning to do even going to shake your goal? Because of course, on Google Maps or Apple Maps, let's say, I put any of my destination. Now, do I just search the destination and start moving? No. I hit directions and or navigate, and then it tells me what streets I need to take to reach closer to my destination, right? So once you have put in the metric, once you have put in the goal of what will drive your business value, then the right thing is to realign your efforts um, to shake that up, to help you reach faster to that goal. Now, if that goal is around the process goals, then you need to realign your processes. If that goal is around the quality measurement, then you need to put in new ways to check your quality. If your goal is around, let's say the last one, um, around testing or like deploying faster, then your goals are around the DevOps things. So I would say once you have the goal, keep a target, keep a deadline, right? And then backtrack. Okay, what all can I do to achieve that? And what should be the timeline for it? And then that's it. Head down and work.
I love that. I love that you pulled in the maps directions concept because that's so relatable. Like I lived in
Yeah.
Boston for 12 years and
Oh.
everything was always shifting. There was construction, streets shut down, casinos being built, new
Yeah.
homes being built.
People zipping through the cars.
Yeah, it's chaos. And I used Waze every day so that I
Yeah.
could reach my destination because it's a shifting field to be moving around on.
Yeah. But I love Boston. Uh, I just came back maybe 15 days back from Boston, so love it.
Nice. Yeah, it's such a good city.
Yeah.
So Goodhart's Law, I know we touched on it a little bit. Did you have some other thoughts you wanted to dig in with, Groove?
Of course, I think there are ways to cheat Goodhart's law when you are managing a team, when you are, let's say, setting up the processes, is to not make that is to not make a measure a target. Because I think when I'm running my team as well, it's essential to keep the targets real. The problem with Goodhart's law is that the targets are unreal. It is imaginary. Why doesn't the Goodhart law apply in sales? Because you're always saying that revenue, right? This is your quota. You have to achieve your quota, and that's real. Money is real, right?
Mhm.
The Goodhart's law is most fondly talked upon in engineering teams because every sort of deadline is virtual. Every sort of target is imaginary. It has been deduced by someone else. Because it's not real, people try to measure it, game it, fiddle around it, and it's all because the output is not linked to outcome. The moment that becomes true, you no longer can apply a Goodhart law. And that's where, I love how Dora metrics, if you even try to game them, right? Game them as much as you want. All you are ending up is a faster iteration speed, nothing else. Plus, it's a team metric, so it's a team sport. You try applying Dora metrics to one individual, they can still try to game it up, but it never helps. So I think when you're dealing with an engineering team, a software team, I think the trick is to apply it on a team because it's a team sport. The trick is to not incentivize people for their outputs because, see, no matter how hard a team works, no matter how much they produce, at the end, it's not necessary that the markets will reward them equally or proportionately. So I would say keep your eyes on the iteration speed, keep your eyes on your quality. And even if people are trying to game it, yeah, game my better quality, game my better iteration speed. I'm happy.
I love that context that outputs are not linked to outcome and that outcomes can be shifting. You can
Yeah.
have all the output in the world, but if the marketplace shifts a little, the outcomes are going to be shifted a little, and all of that output is not going anywhere. And you lose sight of what's important. I know we're coming closer on time. We have a few slides left. How do you ensure team buy-in on a cultural level? So this is one of the parts
Yeah.
that I was looking forward to digging into the most, that culture level of a team. And I know you mentioned you were chatting with Nathan Harvey earlier. I did a fireside chat with him a couple months
Yeah.
back, and we really dug in on culture. Why do you think culture is important in the context of what we're talking about here?
Yeah. See, at the end, the first business that all of us are in is a human relation business, right? So it doesn't matter what business, it doesn't matter uh how much revenue, it doesn't matter which stage you are in, it doesn't matter whether you're earning the most number of salary or not. What matters to humans is that they are part of something important, they're part of something useful, and that's the culture. They belong, the sense of belonging to a place is the most fulfilling of them all, right? Nobody wants to not work hard, nobody wants to just go check in, eat lunch and check out from a place. So people want to be a part of something, and it's very important for them, for the leaders, to get that culture going right for them, right? And then comes the buying. Now there are two parts to it, right? And I'll try to wrap them up short. A, if you are trying to build a culture of getting people to a place where they belong, then please align their goals with the organizational goals so that they can see their success and the organization success coherent, right? They are looking at their efforts being put uh, to scale the organization is also helping them grow. The second thing is, as a team, do we a trust each other, are we agreeing on the goal, and then let's put in whatever it takes to achieve that goal. So I mean, the question is, how do we take buy-in? Is to align the goals, is to align the clear goals, make it transparent. Don't believe that a command culture would work. I think humans, especially in this era, have more options, and make it human, make it a human business. Tell them why it's important, and treat them like adults, right? Just before this session, I was scrolling down my Instagram and I saw a nice video from um, co-founder at Netflix, and they mentioned a small instance where their team was the leadership team was walking through, and a couple of engineers were soaking in the hot tubs in the company, and they could sense that every one of them were bitching about the company, and and that triggered them that, okay, if we are giving the best amenities and still people are bitching about us, then what do they really want? And that's when they realize that people really want to be treated as adults, being given the autonomy to operate, and being trusted for what they can act upon, the same way you were mentioning in the beginning of this webinar.
Oh man, so many good thoughts there, Drew, to unpack. Starting with trust. So I was listening to a Adam Grant podcast a couple weeks back, and he interviewed the U.S. Olympic hockey team from the 1980 Miracle on Ice. And he did that to unpack what makes a team successful, even an amateur team. Like, for anybody not familiar with that team, they were very young. They were college age. I think the average age on that team was like 19, 20 years old. But the coach transplanted about 9 players that had been playing for him at, I think, the University of Minnesota, and then grabbed about 5 or 6 others that were Boston-based, like Boston University hockey players, and brought them together on this team, and was not their friend in any way, shape, or form. He was their coach, drove them, pushed them so that they would unify together and depend on each other, building trust, while also understanding what roles each of them was best at, so that not everybody is the scorer. Not everybody is the defender, but finding where people fit, having trust that they are in the place that they need for maximum team success, and building on that time and time again as you develop a culture with the foundation of trust and driving purpose towards the outcome. In that case, the outcome is that they really wanted to just win the next game. And in business, not that much different. We want to win over the next customer. We want to drive the business forward and do our best. And when we're committing so much time to a business, 40, 50, however many hours you're out there, purpose is so important because, like you said, Drew, there's choices out there today and people know that. And if you don't have that culture that pulls people in, what do you have?
That example really reminded me of Ted Lasso and the poster Believe. Have you watched it?
I love it. Love that show.
Yeah. Cool. Really good answer.
Cool. And with that, I think we're going to pull up a little bit on Dora.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned Dora throughout. Drew, do you want to talk through this slide a little?
Oh, yeah. So I think for everyone who's new to the Dora report, the Google Cloud team every year pulls up this report by researching over multiple organizations. And, we are in a massive shift throughout this industry. I mean, of course, there are large companies who are, always ahead of the bleeding edge. There's, the companies who are the first ones to adopt the blockchain, the AI, and the cloud, everything. But, it's very important to understand that the world is not filled with the top tech companies. Sure, they are a big employer, but the world is filled with normal people, normal companies doing great business. Not every business is a startup. So earlier they were, in that microservice move, and the technology always keeps on moving, right? So they have to make things efficient. And then now suddenly there's the AI shift. And every time we wake up, it's like AI is eating up the job. And we are just eating sugar because of that. But the stress is increasing. And that's where, this report also touches on the burnout, the productivity, the job satisfaction. So everything that they're talking about in this report is around the impact of, okay, now with AI in place as well, how do we look at the best performing teams and the least performing teams? And what are the areas that we are measuring them upon? So those are the, metrics or the, the levers that they are being measured upon. And, I'll let Gerry cover the next slide where we have covered, these outcome points in this report.
Yeah, and I think at this point, it's a lot of the things we touched on. So great report, a ton of data in here, and connecting with that earlier slide and what we're just talking through with culture and belonging, it frames up transformational leadership, like that leader of the US gold medal hockey team in 1980. What does it take to unify a team around that goal and move them forward and get them working in an optimal way? So the way transformational leadership is defined in this, it shows an elevation in job satisfaction, productivity, team performance, and it just makes an unbelievable difference. These stats are just based on a 25% increase in that leadership. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Drew, to dig in a little on Middleware's report, the State of Open Source Dora report.
Absolutely. I think we are very excited to share, our learnings on what we did with the best open source repositories of all time, right? Whether it is Mozilla, it's your favorite languages like Python, Ruby, TypeScript. So what we did was So middleware is one of the uh, leading products which helps you understand the Dora metrics for your teams. And we are also open source for Dora metrics. So we thought that mixing these two things, can we drive something interesting, right? There are a lot of open source organizations which perform even better than a lot of companies, right? And so we did a report uh, of our style, where we went ahead and analyzed how these teams operate, and can we learn something out of them, right? And the learnings were amazing. So if you could move to the next slide, right? We we realize that a lot of teams which are having a quick cycle time are also focusing on a lot of documentation, which helps people not get confused. People understand much better about uh, the code bases. We also understood, let's say, the quality issues were lesser because of the context that teams were having. So this is one of the core learnings, and then there are a lot of learnings around, okay, how are the teams which have a faster iteration time like operating versus the ones who are not. And then you realize that they have probably more reviewers, and uh, they have more people who are balancing the workload, versus some of them who are just like, one person is dragging the whole load. One person is the most important person in the whole team. So I think that's where we have shared a couple of these learnings in this report. I'm not sure if the QR code is available for this report. Yeah, but yeah, so we'll share the QR code on this report soon with the viewers. So yeah, if you could, yeah, move to the next slide. Thanks, Gerry. So yeah, please check out middleware. It's middlewarehq.com. And we are an engineering management platform. It helps you in detecting inefficiencies in your processes, from ideation to product delivery across. Everything is just out of the box. You just need to plug in your Jira, your GitHub, and you're all set. So yeah, if you, after this session, if you are also uh, you know, motivated to choose your one metric in 2025, and trying to drive across the productivity of your team, do check out middleware. And yeah, along with Copia, we are also gold sponsors for this year's Dora report, and we are proud to partner with Google this year to bring in what's important to the industry, what's important to you, and at, last but not the least, helping you drive change faster than anyone else.
Yeah, because that's what we all want to do, drive change
Yeah.
in a positive direction. And very proud to be a sponsor of Dora and teaming together on this. Quick Copia at a glance. We were founded in 2021, started shipping product in 20. We were founded in 2020. Sorry, it's a long week, getting ready for the holidays. 2021, we started shipping product. The team, world-class collection of talent. This is one of the most talented places I've ever been in 20 years of professional life. And that's because, going back to what we were talking about before, we're unified around this purpose of bringing industrial DevOps into manufacturing and distribution. Not just an incremental change. I've worked for a lot of software companies where we've been able to do and have very powerful results, but nothing like this. This change in process and technology unifies people and shows that you can have not just like a 10, 20, 50% impact, but an exponential change to the productivity of your operations, meeting the goals and outcomes that you want for your organization. Today, we have source control. So version control of your code, centralized repository, visual diffs as you're adjusting your industrial code so you can see what has changed. You can review it, comment in line. And we recently added a new co-pilot with a very practical, pragmatic approach to help with documentation, generation, summarization, all the izations you can have around code to help make it better and empower your workforce to do more, just like everybody is asking with less, and driving that efficiency within your team. Device link, our automatic backup, and another piece of that DevOps stack so that all of your files are centralized and ready in the case of disaster. So if you get hit by a cybersecurity attack, you can click a button, revert your code, and have confidence that you have the latest files going back into controlling your automation, which is vital in these cyber physical systems for safety, for quality, for all of the things that we've touched on throughout this session. And I'm going to end on this one. There's a lot of data in our first annual State of Industrial DevOps report, and I encourage everybody to take a look at it if you haven't already. Some of the key metrics are really helpful in follow-up to this conversation today. We found that downtime was a crushing number for manufacturing and distribution. That might be the one metric for many organizations out there. Maintaining uptime, avoiding downtime, and understanding that cost of downtime, which puts pressure on everyone to perform and to get all the operations to perform at a maximum level, which, because it's a pressure cooker on people, can push them into making changes that might not necessarily be best practice. Hot fixes, very common. Our report showed that almost 80% of organizations are commonly doing these. And when you have so many different devices in so many places, that's going to cause problems down the line. And you're going to eventually be in that reactive state that we talked about earlier, trying to keep the lights on, not feeling in that creative approach to really innovate and have best practices for your code and code management. So with that, I know we're at time. I'm going to stop sharing and say, Dhruv, thank you so much. And thank you so much to our audience for being here. Dhruv, last thoughts from you?
No, thank you. This was fun. And thanks again, Gerry, for having me. In fact, having us and share, some of our stories here. A lot of good cultural insights from you. And I really like the fact that you're quite, front foot on the way you approach the team with culture. I'm excited to, see more content coming from you and again, collaborate in future with you. So this was great fun.
Likewise. Yeah, this was an exciting start. Really looking forward to collaborating with you, Dhruv, and Middleware.
Likewise. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Joe. And thanks, Shivam.